All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, the New York Football Giants have 4 games under their belt now or since they fired head coach Brian Daboll. And the results for the Giants are no better than they were when Daboll was calling the shots, as they have yet to win a game under interim head coach Mike Kafka. Now, today was probably the Giants' best chance to win a game in quite some time, as they were actually favored at home coming off of their bye against the Washington Commanders, who, of course, were without starting quarterback Jaden Daniels. But the Giants could not overcome the Marcus Mariota-led Commanders, who defeated Big Blue 29-21 to put an end to their own 8-game losing streak. And after the win by the Tennessee Titans last Sunday, the Giants now control their own destiny, if you want to be proud of that, if you will, as far as having the first overall pick in next April's draft. And aside from the contest that the Giants have with the Vegas Raiders in a couple of weeks, this was probably today New York's best opportunity to win a game for the rest of the season. Now, in a very surprising movement, I've said this before and I will continue to say it. Giants general manager Joe Schoen was spared last month when Dayball was shown the door. And Giants co-owner John Mara has not guaranteed that Shane is going to be back for next year, but he's not really dismissed the possibility as well. However, John Mara cannot overlook the glaring issues with his franchise. The fans are not showing up to MetLife Stadium. The paid attendance today was more than 77,000, but for anyone who watched this game, they would concur that the actual game attendance was more in line with what you'd see from a college bowl game that was played between a pair group of 5 schools. Okay, and what is Mara going to do if the Giants finish the season with a record of 3-14 for the second consecutive year, or possibly 2-15, which would be their worst mark in franchise history? Now, after the Giants went 9-7-1 back in 2022 en route to a playoff appearance, it was also the first season with Shane and Dayball with the Giants. New York is only 11-37 cents. And to give you an idea of how bad that is, we already have 4 teams this season in the National Football League who have won at least 11 games. Okay, so they've basically done in 2+ years with the Giants, or less than one season with the Giants, haven't been able to do in 2+ years. And I've said it before, and I will continue to say it, and that is there's absolutely no way that John Mara can be comfortable to allow Joe Shane to return and run things for the Giants next season. We're hearing about rumors of potential head coaching candidates for next season for the Giants. But again, like I keep saying, Joe Shane should not and cannot be at the helm to make these decisions. As look at the Giants, they are a mess, okay? And that mess falls into the lap of Shane more than Brian Dayball, because this was his roster construction, and I'm talking about Joe Shane. Now, yes, the Giants may have plenty of young talent on their team that could be appealing to a potential head coach for next season, but they also have culture issues, and Shane has not helped to fix that on his watch. Now, if the fans are not showing up to MetLife Stadium, and of course, the Giants got 2 more games this season at home. They got the Vikings next Sunday, and then they finish up with the Dallas Cowboys. And I guarantee you, especially that last game of the season, if Dallas has something to play for, you're probably going to see more Cowboy fans at MetLife than anything else. But nonetheless, um, if the fans are not showing up like we saw today against the Commanders, that affects John Mara's bottom line more directly than the planes flying over asking him to fix this mess. Why? Because when the fans are not showing up, his pockets are hurting. Yes, tickets were sold in advance. I get all of that. There were still tickets for sale, but on top of that, less people paying for parking, less people buying merchandise, less people buying beer, food, all of that stuff. So you are hurting his pockets, and no billionaire likes to miss out on making as much profit as possible. I'll tell you like this: if Joe Schoen is back with the Giants for next season, John Mara is going to have a full revolt on his hands from the Giants fan base as well as the media in the New York, New Jersey area as well. The Giants, and it's unfortunate, they have become a joke of a franchise. And it's hard to sit here and understand that. And it's hard to fathom because it was just 14 years ago. And I know 14 years ago seems like a long time, but it was just 14 years ago that New York was claiming their fourth Lombardi trophy. And when you think about the franchises that have won at least four Super Bowls, there's only a handful of franchises that can say that: New England, Dallas, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Green Bay, and then you've got the Giants in that mix as well. But ever since, Super Bowl 46, it has been a huge nosedive for this team. Now, again, you look at it. When Brian Daboll was fired, the Giants were 2-8. They're now 2-12. Very real possibility that this team might finish 3-14, 2-15. It's going to have to force the hand of John Mara to go out there and do something, because you cannot allow Joe Schoen to continuously come back here and have a crack at it again for 2026 with the mess that he has helped to create for this team. You got to go all the way back to 1965 to find the last time that the Giants had the first overall pick in the NFL draft. And that year, they used it on running back Tucker Frederickson. This is what we're looking at for the Giants. This is, for most Giant fans, this is uncharted water. And I know that they've been picking top five a lot in the last 10 years or so, but nonetheless, for the Giants to have the first overall pick, there's a lot of Giants fans walking around nowadays that don't know about that. There's a lot of Giants fans who were probably told by their fathers, grandfathers about how bad it was during the 60s and the 70s. I got news for you. You're right there with what you're seeing right now. And in some cases, it could possibly be worse because remember, the Giants, like in those days in the National Football League, you basically had to win your division to get to the postseason. Now you've got wild cards out of the wazoo, so it's easier to get to the playoffs, and the Giants can't even go out there and get that done. Again, this losing is going to have to force John Mara to do something. I know he's been dealing with some health issues. You hope that that he gets better. But again, it's one of those where there's no way under the sun that you can allow Joe Schoen to come back, especially after today's loss to Washington. There's a lot of Giants fans out there that want to see Joe Schoen gone yesterday, not tomorrow, yesterday. Okay. And the thing is, I think it's getting to the point where it's kind of like how it was earlier this season when Russell Wilson was the starting quarterback for the Giants coming out of training camp. And after those first two losses on the road, and then after they stunk it up at home offensively against Kansas City, it was one of those where, there was no way in the world that Brian Daboll could allow Russell Wilson to once again be the starter at quarterback for the Giants, and of course he went to almost to Jameis Winston. He went to Jackson Dart in week number 4 against the Chargers, provided a spark, and of course the Giants were going to win that game. I said it was necessary at that point to sit Russell Wilson because you could not afford to have to trot Russell Wilson out there back in front of that fan base for another week. When the Giants kept finding ways to lose games, and I really thought the Denver game should have been it for Brian Daboll. It took a couple of weeks of the same thing before they said, hey, you know what? After the loss to Chicago, the Giants had to make a move, and they moved on from Brian Daboll. I think right now, with 2 out of your final 3 games at home, if you are the Giants, you cannot allow Joe Schoen to continue to be general manager because for the Giants fans who are going to be in attendance, and it's not going to be a sellout, okay, they're going to be boisterous, all right, and they are going to let their feelings out about the team's current general manager if this team continues to lose. So again, this falls on John Mara. This falls on the Mara family. They've got to do something. You might like Joe Schoen personally, okay? I get it. But at the same time, having him run your franchise is not best for business because you think about it. Giant fans for the last decade or so, for the most part, have not had a lot to look forward to in December. And I'll tell you like this, even in the lean years, historically for the Giant fans would still show up, whether it was Giant Stadium, old Yankee Stadium, you name it. Now they're not even doing it. Okay, so I think again, you cannot afford to go out there and say, "Hey, we are bringing this guy back." It's one of those. Clearly, the Giants had their opportunities to win today against Washington. They didn't take care of those. They're going to have opportunities next Sunday against the Vikings because more than likely they're going to be facing a young quarterback in J.J. McCarthy as well. But at the end of the day, the Giants still got to go out there and take care of their business. And again, each week that the Giants lose, it just adds to the angst of their fan base. And I think each time that they lose, it's going to frustrate them even more and say, hey, we have got to get Joe Schoen out of here. Um, I've said this before. We saw this last year in a similar fashion with the Jets. Robert Saleh was fired as a head coach early in the season, and then later in the season, Joe Douglas was gone. Okay, and I said, whomever comes in next year for the Giants, they need to have a clean slate. I truly think it's you have to clean house. You got to start over fresh with your entire coaching staff, with your entire front office. Clearly, you have yourself a young quarterback who has potential in Jackson Dart. You want to build around him. I think some of the defensive players could be expendable due to the fact that if you do, clearly you're going to bring in a new coaching staff, but if you bring in a new general manager as well, that person is not attached at the hip with any of those people either. So I think a lot has to change with this Giants organization. It's not about talent, it's more about fit, and it's also about guys who hate to lose more than they enjoy winning. And I'll tell you like this, the Giants probably have some guys in that locker room that upon joining this organization, they anticipated, winning because you come in from colleges, you come from big teams that were winning, at the collegiate level, you're accustomed to it. But now you're losing and you can't find a way to get ahead of it. And unfortunately, losing becomes accepted. And that is basically what we're seeing from the Giants. And like I keep saying time and time again, the Giants take the field and they play like a team that expects to lose. Hence, how we've seen the fourth quarter meltdowns all season long. And again, that falls into the lap of Joe Schoen. You can no longer blame Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll is gone. And don't get me wrong, Brian Daboll deserved to go. But again, like I said, Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll were attached at the hip when they came to New York. They have to go out. And of course, Daboll is already out the door. Schoen should be joining him anytime soon. And I guarantee you, if and when that day comes, there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of Giants fans in the New York, New Jersey area that'll be more than happy to help him pack, get out of town, whether over at the Port Authority, Newark, JFK, LaGuardia, you name it, they would definitely help him out. You want to see how the Giants finish this season. They've got 3 more games left. They're home for Minnesota next Sunday. They're at the Raiders, the last game of the calendar year. And then, of course, they finish up at home with the Dallas Cowboys. So you look at the draft order right now, you've got 3 2-12 teams: the Giants, the Raiders, and the Titans. All the 2-12. That game between the Giants and the Raiders in 2 Sundays is going to go a very long way in determining who gets the first overall pick for the draft. The loser of that game could possibly drop down to third because there's not a guarantee that the Titans are going to win another game themselves. And then right behind the Giants, you've got Cleveland, the Jets, and Arizona, all at 3-11. And of course, both the Saints and Washington won today. They're 4-10, and then you've got Cincinnati right there at 4-10 as well. And then rounding out the top 10 of the NFL draft would be the Atlanta Falcons. However, their pick goes to the Los Angeles Rams. But nonetheless, if you're the Giants, another bad season. And again, there's no way in the world that you can bring Joe Schoen back. The ball is in the Mara family's court. They might like Joe Schoen, but it's not best for business to have him continue to run your franchise. What is New York going to do? The fans are speaking loudly, okay? They don't want Shane back. Will John Mara listen to the fans? We've got to wait and see. But nonetheless, changes have already occurred for the Giants, and we need to see more. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw on this podcast, you know what to do. Just hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it is greatly appreciated. Also, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you can check me out anytime at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you give me that follow, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back in return. And that also goes for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Also, if you're on Facebook, definitely check out the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports groups going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.